Coronation Street ends with dark Theo twist. Are Todd and Billy in danger? Coronation Street delivered a chilling cliffhanger featuring Theo Silverton, leaving fans fearing for Todd Grimshaw and Billy Mayhew's safety. Tensions between Todd and Theo have been building for weeks, with Theo showing increasingly manipulative and controlling behavior as he tries to keep Todd away from his close friend and former partner, Billy. In tonight's episode, Theo was preparing for Noah Headley's funeral and asked Todd to come along for support. Todd claimed he couldn't make it because George had scheduled 2 funerals that day, though that wasn't the truth. In reality, Todd had a hospital appointment to check for possible bowel cancer, but chose not to tell Theo, thinking he didn't need to add to his stress. Later, as they stopped by the cafe, Todd asked George to keep up the lie. However, Theo had already begun questioning everyone around them. Todd eventually went to the hospital with Billy, who offered to come along for moral support. After the appointment, Todd and Billy headed to the Rovers for a drink. Theo showed up unexpectedly and was clearly irritated to see them together. He pressed them with questions about their day, but Todd dodged his interrogation. Things took another turn when Todd accepted George's invitation to a double date at the bistro with Christina. Theo's mood darkened further, and he kept pushing for answers from both Todd and Billy. When Christina made a few jokes about Theo's controlling behavior, Todd became defensive, and the pair decided to leave. Back home, Theo seemed pleased that Todd had defended him, but his demeanor changed completely when he noticed a message from Billy on Todd's phone. His expression turned cold and menacing as the episode faded out. Could Theo be plotting something sinister? Elsewhere in Weatherfield, another couple is facing trouble. Carla Connor and Lisa Swain are hitting a rough patch following the arrival of Lisa's late wife, Becky. Speaking about the tense storyline, Amy Cudden, who plays Becky, revealed that her character will try to come between Carla and Lisa, though it won't be easy. "It's definitely a threat," Amy explained, "but this is Carla Connor we're talking about. She's as tough as they come. It's been great to play the tension between 2 strong women both fighting for the same person." All Coronation Street spoiler videos for next week as emotions reach breaking point. Next week on Coronation Street, tension runs high across Weatherfield, with several relationships pushed to their limits. From family feuds to heated confrontations, the cobbles are brimming with drama. At the Webster household, emotions are raw. Debbie is desperate to convince her brother Kevin that she never intended to betray him by staying silent about Abby and Carl's secret. She insists her actions came from a place of care, not deceit. But Kevin, still furious after throwing Debbie out on Friday, October 10th, refuses to soften. He can't move past the feeling of being lied to, and another fierce argument erupts between the siblings, leaving the Webster family more divided than ever. Elsewhere, another clash brews when Lisa Swain and Becky come face to face. After Betsy ends up spending the night behind bars, Lisa makes it clear she's had enough. Becky tries to defend herself, suggesting Lisa is overreacting, but Lisa hits back, accusing her of causing chaos since returning to Weatherfield. The tension between the 2 women is palpable, and it's clear their history is far from settled. Meanwhile, Todd Grimshaw finds himself in yet another difficult spot. After spending the night at Billy Mayhew's flat, he's racked with anxiety about what to tell Theo. Todd knows how controlling and jealous Theo can be, and he's terrified that the truth or even a hint of it could cause things to spiral. In one of next week's key scenes, Todd wakes up on Billy's sofa, clearly uneasy. Billy gently asks if he's planning to tell Theo where he stayed, reminding him that honesty might help calm things down. He even offers to speak to Theo himself, hoping to diffuse any misunderstandings. But Todd quickly shuts the idea down, uncertain of how to handle the situation. He's torn between telling the truth and protecting himself from Theo's unpredictable temper. As Todd leaves Billy's flat, confusion and guilt weigh heavily on him. He's unsure what his next move should be, and the look on his face makes it clear he knows trouble is coming. Meanwhile, Lisa learns that Betsy has finally been released from the police station after her night in the cell. But the incident only adds more strain to Lisa's already complicated life. Becky, never one to miss an opportunity to stir things up, tries to manipulate the situation by suggesting Lisa's to blame for Betsy's behavior. Lisa, however, stands her ground, angrily pointing out that Becky's sudden reappearance in Weatherfield is the real reason Betsy is so unsettled. The week ahead promises more drama, raw emotion, and plenty of confrontations. And if these preview clips are anything to go by, viewers are in for a roller coaster ride on the cobbles. Coronation Street's Tim reaches a difficult decision about Tricia as Sally is left reeling. Earlier this week on Coronation Street, Tim picked up Tricia in his taxi, and it quickly became obvious that the two shared a past. They spent the afternoon reminiscing and catching up, but their reunion didn't sit well with Sally, who ended up eating their anniversary meal alone. When Tim returned home and tried to explain his absence, his excuse only added fuel to the fire, prompting Sally to order him to spend the night on the sofa. The next day, Tricia reappeared at the cab office, this time bringing one of Tim's favorite pastries as a peace offering. While chatting, Brian Packham showed up and Tim introduced them. The two seemed to get along immediately. However, things took a sharp turn when Sally arrived, and Tricia casually mentioned that she was friends with the owner, not realizing that Sally was his wife. The mood grew tense as Sally politely introduced herself, and a visibly uncomfortable Tricia soon made her exit. Later on, Tim and Brian continued talking about Tricia, with Tim revealing that he used to deliver newspapers to her father and that she'd worked in the local corner shop. That's where they first met. Brian was stunned when Tim admitted that he'd lost his virginity to Tricia when he was just 14 years old. Since Tricia had been in her 20s at the time, Brian pointed out that what happened was grooming, though Tim insisted it wasn't. In the latest episode, Tricia ran into Brian at the cafe while looking for Tim. Unable to hold back, Brian confronted her about what she had done to Tim all those years ago, leaving her shocked and defensive. Moments later, Tim arrived, and when Tricia told him about Brian's accusation, he immediately took her side. Realizing Tim wouldn't listen, Brian urged him to speak to Sally instead. Tim wasn't keen on the idea, but he had no choice when Sally stormed into the cab office after hearing about his heated exchange with Brian. Once Tim explained what the argument had been about, Sally was stunned. As Brian had suspected, she immediately recognized that what happened between Tim and Tricia wasn't a relationship. It was sexual abuse. She reminded him that teenage boys praising him back then didn't make it right, since they weren't mature enough to understand what had really happened. Tim grew uncomfortable and shut down the conversation, insisting that he still saw it as a consensual and positive experience. But Sally refused to let the matter drop. Later that evening, when Tim came home, he found her scrolling through Tricia's social media profile. Sally pointed out a disturbing comment under one of Tricia's photos, suggesting she should be in prison, which convinced her that Tricia might have a history of predatory behavior. Tim accused her of overreacting, arguing that the age gap between him and Tricia was no different from the one between him and Sally. Frustrated, Sally reminded him that he had been a child then and legally couldn't give consent, no matter how he viewed it now. Even though the couple still didn't agree, Tim eventually decided it was best to stop seeing Tricia altogether. He met her later at the Rovers to explain his choice, leaving Tricia hurt and confused. She asked if he believed Brian's claims, but Tim insisted he didn't. He told her that was exactly why he needed to keep his distance, to avoid giving Sally the wrong idea. With Tricia now seemingly out of his life, the question remains, will Tim finally face the truth about what happened and accept that he was taken advantage of as a teenager? Coronation Street airs on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. on ITV1 and streams on ITVX.